All right, let's dive into something pretty wild. We're going to break down how China, a country many thought was on the ropes, appears to have won a major trade battle with the US in 2025. It's a fascinating story, so let's get right to it.
It all really kicks off with this incredibly powerful line. Back in 1949, when Mao Zedong declared that China had stood up, it was this huge, loud political moment. Fast forward to 2025, and the analysis suggests China stood up all over again. But this time, it wasn't with speeches or parades. It was quiet, it was economic, and maybe, just maybe, it was even more profound.
So that's the big question we're tackling, right? How on earth did Beijing manage to pull this off? I mean, from Washington's perspective, this was supposed to be a slam dunk. So what happened? Let's dig into their playbook.
Okay, first things first. To really get why China won, you have to understand why the US thought it couldn't lose. The thinking in Washington was pretty simple. China's economy was slowing down, its property market was a mess, so, hit them with some tough tariffs and tech bans and they'll fold, right? Well, they didn't.
No, instead of folding, Beijing played a completely different game. It was like a masterclass in economic jujitsu. They didn't come out swinging with a sledgehammer. They used a scalpel. They applied these super precise controls on things like rare earth minerals, stuff the US desperately needs. Then they threw in just enough bureaucratic sand in the gears at customs to make things difficult. And all the while, they were cleverly redirecting their own exports through places like Southeast Asia and Mexico. It was smart, really smart.
And you can see the results right here. Look at that drop in exports to the United States, a massive 40% plunge. A hit like that should have been devastating. But China didn't just take it on the chin. They pivoted, and they pivoted hard. They started selling way more to the rest of the world. Asia, Europe, you name it, and they didn't just make up for the loss, they actually came out ahead.
And wow, here's the punchline. $1 trillion. By November of 2025, for the first time in history, China's goods trade surplus blasted past the $1 trillion mark. If you needed one single piece of evidence that their global strategy worked, well, this is it. But hold on, because this is where the story takes a really sharp turn. That incredible victory on the world stage, it's hiding a totally different, much messier reality back home. It's almost like we're talking about two completely different economies at the same time. So this is the central puzzle, right? On one hand, you have this powerhouse exporter crushing it globally. But on the other hand, inside China, things are not so great. Retail sales are barely moving, people aren't investing in new projects, and the average Chinese consumer is just holding onto their cash. They're nervous. And look, this isn't just some abstract economic theory. This source brings up a perfect real-world example. Nike, one of the biggest brands in the world. Their sales numbers in China have been weak, and that tells you everything you need to know. If people aren't buying sneakers, it's a huge red flag that the consumer-led recovery just isn't happening.
So what are we supposed to make of this weird mix of incredible strength on the outside and real fragility on the inside? Well, it means one thing for sure. Whatever you thought you knew about engaging with China, you can probably throw it out the window. The game has totally changed. There's a new set of rules now.
And because of all this complexity, there's this massive debate raging in the financial world. People are asking a really fundamental question. Is it safe to invest in China again? Is China investable? And the answer, as you can probably guess, is, well, it's complicated. So the first new rule you have to understand is this idea of managed decoupling. A few years ago, everyone was talking about this big, messy divorce between the US and Chinese economies. But that's not what's happening. Think of it more like a slow, very deliberate, very strategic separation. Both Washington and Beijing are driving this, and it's all about national security. And the second new rule, that's coming straight from Beijing. They call it new productive forces. You need to get this term because it's everything to them right now. It's their number one priority. It's their mission to become completely self-reliant and to dominate the technologies that are going to define the future. We're talking AI, robotics, advanced manufacturing. For them, this is absolutely non-negotiable. So what's the bottom line for anyone looking to invest? It's simple, really. The welcome mat is still out for foreign capital, but the terms and conditions have been completely rewritten. Your money is only welcome if it helps China achieve its goals of self-reliance. The days of thinking of China as just a wide-open market to make a quick buck, those are over.
All right, so with these new rules of the road in mind, let's look ahead. What does 2026 actually look like? Where are the opportunities to invest in this new China? And maybe even more important, what are the huge flashing red lights, the risks you just can't ignore?
If you look at the calendar for 2026, it seems like there might be this little window of opportunity for things to calm down. There's a big state visit planned for April. But man, that window is fragile, because as soon as the U.S. midterm elections start to heat up in the summer, you know the pressure to sound tough on China is going to get intense, and that could slam that window shut fast.
And the real flashpoint, the place where things could get really tense, is technology. Specifically, AI. There's this growing worry in DC about what's being called a tale of two AIs. See, the US is kind of going for this moonshot, this high-risk, high-reward quest for true artificial general intelligence. China? They're doing something different. They're just churning out practical, industrial AI that's fast, cheap, and can be used in a factory tomorrow. It might not be as sexy, but it has a massive, immediate economic impact.
And that brings us right to the biggest risks for 2026. The political landscape could change in a heartbeat. China could decide to squeeze those critical mineral exports again, or you could see a supermajority in the U.S. Congress decide to get even tougher on tech investment. We've seen this movie before, right? Just look at what happened with NVIDIA. The entire business model for a massive company can get turned upside down by a policy change overnight.
So let's circle back to that big $1 trillion question. Is China investable? According to this analysis, the answer is a very careful yes, but. The opportunities are definitely there. I mean, in areas like green technology and industrial automation, China is setting the pace for the whole world. But you have to go in with your eyes wide open to the massive, unavoidable risks. The politics, the sudden policy shifts, and this long-term managed decoupling that's not going away.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty unsettling thought to chew on. China absolutely won the battle of 2025. They proved they could stand up to the pressure. So the real question now, heading into 2026, is this. Are they just using this period of calm to catch their breath? Or are they quietly using this breathing room to get ready to win the war?